Foxborough Rush coming your way on a Friday afternoon. Patriots courts getting set for a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Foxborough, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Annabelle Hasselbeck, Jade McCarthy here to get you ready for it. And AB, why not just go boots on the ground in Pittsburgh, get a feel for how the Steelers are thinking about coming into Foxborough this weekend? And for that, we are happy to welcome Brian Batko here onto Foxborough Rush, covers the team for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Brian, how are you today? You got the backdrop of the Steelers facility and everything behind you.
I'm doing great. And yes, some sort of train apparatus coming behind me as well. So the Steelers need to get back to some grimy, gritty roots on the field. And this is where they do it at in Pittsburgh at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. Trains going by, all sorts of stuff happening. Thanks for having me on.
Brian told us as we were getting ready that sometimes, when the trains see the players out there, they give them a toot when they drive by. Look, Brian, I'm going to go right to that run game. You talk about grittiness. We certainly haven't seen it in the rushing game from the Steelers in the early going this season, right? Under 75 yards in both week 1 and week 2. What's the talk amongst players and coaches this week when it comes to getting that run game going?
Yeah, I think they certainly want to have a ground game as part of their DNA. I mean, that's basically the most cliche Steelers football narrative that you can throw out there in any given year. They're built on the run game. They're trying to, really establish that in any given week. But they've got DK Metcalf in here. They signed Aaron Rodgers. They've invested a lot in their tight ends in Jonnu Smith, former Patriot, and Pat Freiermuth, a Boston area native. So it comes down to kind of the X's and O's that make sense in any given week versus the philosophy that they want to instill from the top down. And I don't know if it's more matchup related or if their young offensive line hasn't gelled just yet, but they've certainly looked better throwing the ball than they have trying to get it going on the ground.
And in throwing the ball, Rodgers mentioned and others mentioned earlier this week that they want to get the ball in the hands of Jaylen Warren more in the passing game. So how do you expect the Steelers to use him against the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll try to use those quick passes as an extension of the run game if they can't just, line up, push people off the ball and run it between the tackles. And again, they've got a lot invested in their offensive line, but they're pretty young. I mean, they've got 3 second-year guys in that group and a third-year player in Broderick Jones who's making the switch from right tackle to left tackle. So they are very much a work in progress. The best spark for them, the only really silver lining from their week 2 home opener loss to the Seahawks was what Jaylen Warren was doing with the ball in his hands, and that was a 65-yard catch and run where he was making things happen in the open field. And based on what I saw from the Patriots against the Dolphins last week, we know the Steelers coaches are watching that same film and sure as heck watching a lot more of it than me. They had some trouble bringing people down in space. So I think the Steelers will try to use Jaylen Warren that way.
Yeah, I'm sure the Steelers coaches have been watching it. I'm also pretty confident Aaron Rodgers has been watching it as well. And the Patriots had a lot of missed tackles. We've certainly seen, the Dolphins have explosive plays against them. We saw the same thing week 1. So what have you heard, just in terms of, you mentioned how they've built this team, right? We all know who Aaron Rodgers is as a quarterback. Do you expect them to have an emphasis on the run game, or do you expect them to just use what they have and go against what the Patriots have been giving up in the passing game?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty funny. Yesterday we were talking to second-year Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith about that, and he was not shy about discussing how paranoid he was to give away any strategies. He says Mike Vrabel has his henchmen out there listening for what he might say, and I think he was saying that in a good-natured way because of how close those two are, and they go way back. But he gave a special shout-out to John Stryker's stretch, as he said. Any X's and O's inkling that he would put out there, the Patriots would be able to pick up on. So he did not really want to get into what their mindset is going to be going into this game. But, I mean, I think for most weeks for the Steelers, sure, they'll try to establish it, but if a team takes that away and makes them one-dimensional and puts more pressure on this kind of shuffled offensive line with guys who some of whom are only playing, their third game in their new positions really in the NFL, if they can make the Steelers one-dimensional and put more pressure on Aaron Rodgers, literally and figuratively, some of those deep plays to DK Metcalf or Calvin Austin maybe don't have time to develop, and you sort of make this offense play with one hand tied behind its back.
You mentioned just the connections between both teams, and you can definitely see why they're going to have tight lips headed into this weekend. But Aaron Rodgers, just as a Steeler, what are your initial thoughts on having him in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, it's still pretty surreal, Annabelle. I mean, it's a strange sight to see him in black and gold, black and yellow, depending on your generation of Steelers fan, I guess. But, week one, they barely faced any adversity as an offense. They got a short field. He cashed in, threw 4 touchdown passes. Everything was clicking as they put up 34 points to win at the Jets. But week two, some of it started to crash down around him. There are a lot of times there where it's sort of like, all right, is that a coverage sack? Did he run into that one? He's obviously not as spry as he used to be. And there was the first moment of, we've seen Aaron Rodgers and, the tempers flare and frustrations at times when a receiver isn't where he needs him to be or doesn't run the right route. Last week, it was Calvin Austin, who's a beloved player here in Pittsburgh, really, who was just trying to make a play and ended up having a ball clanged off of his hands and into a Seahawks player's hands for an interception. And Aaron Rodgers acknowledged that after the game, but was also very careful, I think, to say, we love Calvin. He's just trying to get something done for our offense in that situation, and I still trust him. I'm going to come back to him. So I think he's very cognizant of all of those narratives, and he's been interesting to watch thus far. And at 1-1, he said he doesn't want to get too binary and say that the Steelers need a win to pull out of the funk they were in last week, but clearly that's the business that they're in the NFL, and this could be his last ride through it.
I know it's an interesting one to watch, like just in the quarterbacks alone, right? I mean, you have Drake Maye, who obviously looked up to Aaron Rodgers as a kid, watching him play this game, and he'll be on the opposing sideline, with Aaron Rodgers, quite possibly in his last trip to play in New England in his career. I want to go to a guy who is a recent Steeler, but has a long history, of course, here in New England, and that would be Jabrill Peppers. He spoke this week about kind of the difference for him going against a former team, something he's done before, but not quite in the same way that he has done previously, Brian. And I just wonder, what have you heard from him this week, right? Like he said, this means maybe a little bit more to me this week than maybe it has in those previous instances.
Yeah, I liked it because we're coming off 2 consecutive weeks in which Aaron Rodgers had a big payback game against the Jets, said basically nothing about them. DK Metcalf had a big matchup with his former team, the Seahawks, said it's just like any other game. Jabrill Peppers went the complete opposite way, which I think is the more candid way. And so far from Jabrill, I'm seeing that he is a pretty honest interview and basically says what's on his mind, for better or worse. I know you all experienced that in New England while he was there. And yeah, I mean, he does seem to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder in this one. I remember asking him what happened when he got cut by the Patriots and why he was available for the Steelers to sign going into week 2. And he said, sometimes you're just not good enough and they just decide that they don't want you around anymore. He didn't mention the scheme fit or anything like that with Mike Vrabel. So I'm sure he said that tongue in cheek. I'm sure he still has a lot of confidence in himself. And while he played 0 defensive snaps in his Steelers debut a week ago, I think you're going to see him in there this week. I don't know if it's just going to be in short yardage sub packages or obvious running downs, but I think they are ready, especially after the way the defense struggled against the Seahawks, to see what Peppers can give them in the back end.
You can imagine, too, that Tomlin wants to put a guy out there who's ready to go and fight, right, and is going to have those high emotions, too, in that game. But I do want to ask you about a moment in the Seahawks-Steelers game last week. It was a missed kickoff, ended up in a Seahawks touchdown with George Halani, and really a missed opportunity on special teams. How have you seen the Steelers clean that up and address that mistake in the fourth quarter?
Well, I guess the first way they're going to address that is they're not going to have rookie running back Caleb Johnson returning kicks anymore, which it's kind of like, all right, I understand that maybe the moment was too big for him, but he's probably the last guy on earth who's going to get that rule wrong again at this point. So I think it was also more so he wasn't really giving them much in the return game. I mean, he didn't do it the last couple years at Iowa as he sort of settled into their featured back. So I think that absolutely there's more of a microscope and a spotlight on Steelers special teams right now. Usually they are making the highlight shows for blocked punts, or the week before against the Jets, they had another running back strip an opposing kick returner. So that phase of the game tends to be a positive and a plus for the Steelers. It's weird to see a week where everybody is talking about their lack of attention to detail. But yeah, that was a brutal moment for a young player. And they, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, they could use their third round pick, Caleb Johnson, to maybe get some things going between the tackles if they are going to be able to run against this really good Patriots front. But I just don't know if they have that trust or that confidence in him right now.
How would you describe the overall atmosphere within the team this week? Like you said, I mean, obviously some missed opportunities, some mistakes, as we were just talking about against the Seahawks last week. Got the big win against the Jets in a really back and forth game in the opener. How would you assess just that overall feeling inside the locker room this week, Brian?
I think one good thing about the Steelers and the culture they have under Mike Tomlin is it is sort of tough to tell on a weekly basis whether they're coming off a big win or a terrible loss or a close loss or a close win. They're generally pretty even-keeled that way, and it probably helps when you have long-tenured players like Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, and now Aaron Rodgers brings a certain presence and gravitas to that room as well. So, I think everybody understands that what they've put out there defensively the first couple of weeks is actually embarrassing, relative to all the hype that was surrounding this team going into the season. But they're also saying it's a long season, and it's just they're 1-1. They've got a long way to go, and they've got a big trip looming after this one to Dublin, which means a lot to the Rooney family here in Pittsburgh against the Vikings. So can't get caught looking ahead, and if anything, maybe losing that home opener last week sort of brought them down a peg a little bit, and they have no choice but to be laser focused on a Patriots team that, a lot of familiarity. We mentioned Peppers, but Jawan Bentley signed to the practice squad this week. I don't think you'll see him out there just yet. He's got to get ramped up. But Daniel Ekuale, who might play a little bit more on the interior because they need help stopping the run, and Robert Spillane over there with the Patriots, who kind of got his first big break here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Brian, curious just to know from your perspective, if you were setting the game plan for this Steelers team, what are your keys to the game for the Steelers to come out with a win?
Yeah, I think you have to try to keep Drake Maye in the pocket, just what he can do with his legs, extending plays. And now you're asking your defensive backs that are missing two starters and Deshaun Elliott at safety, Joey Porter Jr. at corner to cover even longer against Kayshon Boutte and Stephon Diggs and Kyle Williams if he's out there. That's a very difficult assignment. So, they've got to be ready for Drake Maye to get into those scramble drills and ad-lib. But if they can, try to keep him in the pocket and allow Jalen Ramsey to go up and just win contested catch opportunities, because I think I would take him and Darius Slay in those matchups if it's just a jump ball more often than not. And, as far as the other side of the ball, you have to be able to protect Aaron Rodgers, because, again, if you let Milton Williams, Harold Landry just pin their ears back and go, it could be a long day for a 41-year-old who, he can maneuver a little bit. I thought he looked more nimble in week 2 than he did week 1, but he's still not going to tuck and run like Drake Maye does and move the chains with his legs. So you're going to be able to, you're going to have to give him a clean pocket and some time for him to be able to pick apart a secondary that I think is still reeling up there in New England.
Yeah, he's talked a little bit about that mobility and getting the legs going a little bit more. We'll see what that means. And, of course, the Patriots leading the league in sacks right now. Brian, before we let you go, give us a prediction for Sunday afternoon.
Oh, it's a tough one. I think this game is basically a coin flip. It's hard for me to see the Steelers falling to 1-2 because of how much talent they do have. And, maybe it comes down to the healthier team. It looks like the Patriots are trending in the right direction there, and the Steelers are not. But I'll say they find a way to get one more play from Aaron Rodgers, kind of like they did in week 1. Maybe that's DK Metcalf taking advantage of a matchup on the outside, and that's the difference. But I truly see it could go either way. I'll say Steelers 20, Patriots 19. Maybe even the kicker matchup comes into play in this one, because Chris Boswell is as good as any in the league, and I know the Patriots rookie was having some struggles last week.
Yeah, can hit the long one, but getting those PATs in proved to be a little challenging
Right.
last week. Brian, we appreciate the time here today. Safe trip up to New England, and we will see how it all shakes out.
Yep. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Brian Batko with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette with us here, and much more ahead here. We'll dive more into this matchup between the Patriots and the Steelers. We'll hear from some of the New England players, including the quarterback, and what it was like watching Aaron Rodgers as he had his own quarterback dreams when, it wasn't all that long ago. Stick around. Much more ahead right here on Foxborough Rush.
Aaron Rodgers growing up, what was it about his game that you liked so much?
Yeah, I think kind of you just get to the age of starting to really love watching football, and they won the Super Bowl when I was probably just remembered watching my first Super Bowl. I know that they won it, so with the Packers. So yeah, just it's very talented. The way throwing the football, and I think anytime he's got some swagger to him, and I think he's just a special how he throws the football. I remember watching it last year, when Jacoby was playing and they were playing at the Jets. I was watching them warm up. It's just something you don't take for granted. Somebody just throws the football that way, and just like I said, his swagger, and yeah, big fan.
Welcome back into Foxborough Rush. Drake Maye talking a little bit about growing up watching this game as a kid, AB, right? And remembering watching that Super Bowl and what Aaron Rodgers did in it. And then, you think to those memories of childhood that we all have, right? And for Drake Maye to find himself on Sunday standing on the opposing sideline from this guy that he watched for so many years, that's a little bit of like a pinch yourself moment.
It really is. And I think what stood out to me from that press conference was just that the first time that he, threw it back was like, Jacoby was warming up and Aaron Rodgers was warming up. And we're talking about warm-ups. Like, he's explaining the moment when he got to see him warm up in his first NFL season. I just thought that was just really exemplified, like you're saying, like how cool of a moment that really is for him. But, man, you're going up against him now. Like, right, you're the starting quarterback competing against him, which is probably pretty crazy. At the same time, you're in game mode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. That said, I think that, you listen to any quarterback around the league, right? And I know for the Giants, Jackson Dart talked about it this week because, he's been running that scout team as, the backup right now for the Giants. And he's like, you watch different guys and you like he's been watching Patrick Mahomes this week. And as you watch different quarterbacks, you're like, oh, like what can I borrow from his game? Or how does he do this? Or, what little thing do I see that might be different here? So it's expected that that's part of what this game is. And that's part of what these players do. And Drake Maye did the same exact thing, when it comes to watching Aaron Rodgers for all those years. Here's a few ways that he thinks that he has learned from Rodgers' game and sort of put a couple things in his own back pocket.
Definitely. And, as an athlete, and Jackson Dart even talked about the challenges of playing scout team and, you want to be the starter, but knowing his role for that team right now, it's hard because you're the superstar in college and then you come in and now you're not even studying your team's offense. You're studying another team's offense. Like it kind of feels detrimental in some ways, in some moments, and discouraging because you want so badly to be able to be studying and preparing your team's offense. But really, like what you're saying is these quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks who are learning on scout team are able to pick up from the best quarterbacks around the league, Hall of Famers, right? Like little things here and there, which is definitely huge for their growth.
All right, so what did Drake learn from the future Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers? Let's hear from New England's quarterback.
Shoot, it's hard to emulate the way he spins it. I mean, he spins it with the best of them. With trying to I remember in 8th grade, I was playing baseball and different sports and, looked up, grip, how to hold a football. So I looked up Aaron Rodgers' grip and, I've had the grip ever since. So, I think, just little things. I think his play fakes are unbelievable. I think the way he gets defenders, he got someone last week on a play fake. And his intensity is, his cadence is one of the best in the league. I'm not going to get there this early in my career, but try to work towards it. He's so good at drawing guys off sides and take advantage of big plays, and I think he's just, like I said, special talent, moving guys, and moving defenders and throwing in tight windows. It's pretty cool to watch.
You can hear the respect, right? Just in the way he talks about Aaron Rodgers' game, AB.
Oh, so humble too, right? Like being able to honor your competitor in that way. And like, no doubt Drake Maye is going to be competitive and wants to be the better quarterback come Sunday. But like you said, it's a process, and he knows where he is in his career. Whereas everyone's talking, Aaron Rodgers isn't in his prime. He's maybe not as mobile. Well, like, because he's already been through his golden era, right? Like, and Drake Maye grew up in that era in his prime. And so yeah, it's awesome to be able to see your starting quarterback lead in that way and respect the opponent, because it shows, fans, but it also shows his teammates, hey, that's how I'm trying to be. Like, that's what I'm trying to get someday.
Yeah, and I love that he's like, I'm not going to get to that cadence at this point in my career, and like the way he can draw guys off and do the different things that he does. Like, humble is the word. He's like, I'm not there yet, but that he's striving to get there. And his offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels talked about what he's seeing from Drake in terms of his cadence at this point. Let's listen to the OC.
You got to practice it, and we do, and he does. And I think there's no shortcut to that. I think you have to try it. I think we have different variations, like every team does. I think he's starting to understand his ownership in that part of the game, But again, like a lot of things, there's a process to this, and there's a long list, and we have to put something at the top. And so, trying to play penalty free is going to be at the top of our list offensively, and however that impacts Drake and his use of the cadence. Certainly we'll try to do that the right way. But I think his attitude about that mirrors his attitude about a lot of things. His footwork, his play faking, his command of the huddle, his reading of coverage, his accuracy, his throwing mechanics. He wants to get better at all of those things, which you try each day as best you can. But there's going to be a process, and it's going to be a lot of time on task. But Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest of all time to do a lot of things, and the cadence would be a very small part of that. But I'm not sure I've ever met a quarterback that didn't envy the way he uses the cadence and try to use it to manipulate the defense and affect the game.
Look, I mean, a lot of respect, obviously, coming from Josh McDaniels there, too, when it comes to Rodgers and how he utilizes that cadence in his game. And a lot of compliment, I would say, very complimentary of a young quarterback in Drake Maye, and just how he does approach the work day in and day out, and looks to stack those small wins each and every day, and get a little bit better. But the reality is he is on the very early going of this. And you heard Josh McDaniels say it's time on task, right? I mean, a lot of this just comes down to repetition and the time that you spend on it day in and day out, AB. And that's why it's such a developmental position for any quarterback in the NFL.
Exactly. And for your own offensive line to understand your cadence as well, right? Like, it's not just Drake, it's the entire offense, because you want the penalties going one way and the offsides going one way, not the other way, right? And Aaron Rodgers is so good at it. Sometimes with the Jets, it kind of hurt him almost. But I think just to what you're saying is, yes, Josh McDaniels is so complimentary of Drake Maye, but he also used the word ownership. And I think there's this really cool display here with the Patriots of they are giving Drake Maye you can't take any shortcuts. It's going to take time on task. It's a process. At the same time, with using phrases like ownership and saying, well, that's on him too to grow in that way. So I think they're in a great situation with how they are really growing this young quarterback.
I do think, it'll be very interesting to see how the Patriots build in the run game. Obviously, it really, I think, benefited Drake last week. I think it benefited a young offensive line last week. We saw so much improvement on that side of the ball, particularly in the early going, too, against the Miami Dolphins. And I think that's going to be part of this test. I'm once again curious, and I said this last week, AB, but I was very curious to see how they would start the game offensively down there in Miami. I'm curious how they're going to start the game once again back here at home, because we did see a struggle in the early going in the first home game of the season. So it's different playing on the road versus playing at home. And that's something that I'll be watching just to see how that offense sort of gets in a groove in the early going of this game. Let's go on the other side of the ball here. We all know what the secondary has been for New England, and we all know that it would be really nice for Christian Gonzalez to be out there and to be effective in this game. He's been limited in practice this week. Mike Vrabel telling everyone, in his media time today, as he spoke with reporters, that Gonzo is officially questionable for the game on Sunday. So
you're saying there's a chance.
Certainly a chance.
You're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, exactly. You're saying there's a chance that he's going to be out there. How much would he be out there? How is he going to impact this game? Look, we all know what he's capable of doing. And he's going to go on your best, and then everything is going to fall into place from there. But I think that's something that's going to be really interesting to watch as we approach this game and find out if, in fact, Christian Gonzalez is able to go.
It would be huge news, absolutely huge news if he plays on Sunday. And it's a really good sign that he's practiced the last couple of days, whether, how limited that was. But I think a lot of it, too, is going to come down to how 100% does Gonzo himself feel, right? Like, I think for positions like he's playing, you want to be 110%, right, when you're doing coverage like he is. So it'll be interesting to see how the Patriots use him, how they ramp him up. Will it be, the first game you go and you're playing the whole game? Because there's a lot of volume, too, that goes down on a game day that is hard to replicate in practice.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to watch, right? I mean, he was out the end of July, so that's a lot of time to miss, with a hamstring. And obviously you want to make sure it's right before he is in fact out there. The limited designation in practice, yes, it's good to have him out there, but how does he feel, as you said, AB? How does he feel, and what does he think he can do? Because the last thing is, you want to send him out there full bore and then have him pull up again, because then all of a sudden you're back to July once again, and where you just were, and once again waiting. All right, let's hear from another member of this Patriots defense talking about having Aaron Rodgers come into town and what it will be like going up against him. Here's Milt Williams.
He's going to get the ball out of his hands quick. It's going to take everybody. Being where they need to be and executing up front.
Drake was talking yesterday just about his cadence and how he uses it like no other. I mean, how do you avoid biting on that?
I mean, coming into it, he liked to play with the cadence. He liked to play with his hands. He liked to catch teams subbing. So we just got to be, everybody got to be on their P's and Q's, locked in, ready for that, knowing he's been doing it for 20 years. So, he ain't finna stop now. So, just make sure everybody locked in on it and just ready to execute our game plan.
From what you've seen on tape, he's still that guy?
Oh, he's still throwing it now. He still can throw it. He still can see it. Probably can't move as well as he used to, but if he needs to, I'm pretty sure he's still going to put his body on the line and get out there. So we got to be ready for it.
In other words, yeah, he's still that guy.
He is that guy, but they're excited, man. When you have the opportunity to sack or just put pressure on a future Hall of Famer, think about how jacked up this Patriots defense is feeling. They're leading the league in sacks. They had a great game against Miami. They're feeling really good, and so does Milton Williams, the guy who closed out last week's game.
Yeah. Look, they have to find ways to get that pressure. They certainly have to find ways, not to draw any penalties. We heard McDaniels talking about it on the offensive side of the ball, but the same is true on the defensive side of the ball. They need to eliminate some of the penalties that they dealt with against Miami. And we heard Vrabel say, this is basically part of the growing process, and not exactly, he wasn't calling guys out for the penalties, but he would like a cleaner game. I think that's the reality of it. Every coach likes to have their team play a clean game. And the other thing that I am very confident, and we heard Vrabel stressing this earlier this week, is the emphasis on tackling, right? Like, you gotta make the tackles, because we've just seen too many guys just stretch long plays because the Patriots players just haven't been able to wrap them up, AB.
No, they haven't. They really struggled with that against Miami. And I think what you did see from week 1 to week 2, one of the Patriots' focus from week 1 to week 2 is, hey, we need a hot start. Like, we need to come out of the gates blazing. And what did they do? They scored on the first drive. And so this week, it's consistency and cleaning up those penalties and tackling, right? Tackling has been a huge focus. So we'll hope to see, can the Patriots still implement those focuses that they're harping on all week?
Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see how much they can improve on that. We know it was a focus on Wednesday's practice. Some of the tackling drills and such that they were really honing in on, and for good reason. But I do think that, to your point, like, will they be able to take that focus this week like they did a week ago, and continue to build off of it, right? Like, do what you needed to do last week, keep that, and then also be able to move forward in a positive direction with something else that has been another added focus. Because that's the reality of this league. Like, there's always going to be something that you have to improve upon from week to week. And there's always something that you're going to be looking towards in a matchup that you have to be able to exploit, and execute upon. So how well can you continually do that week after week, especially in the early going where teams are still, defining their identity, AB? And that's something that this Patriots team is doing. It's something that the Steelers are doing under Mike Tomlin, and so are 30 other teams all around the league.
Right, and the Patriots don't have that identity at home yet, right? They weren't able to get the win week 1, and Vrabel talked about it this week, how he wants Gillette Stadium to be a hard place to play. You think about going to Pittsburgh and playing in that stadium, you got the terrible towels, you got this music, like, that's a hard place to play, and Vrabel really wants to make Gillette Stadium that as well this season, but it comes with a win, and it comes with getting your fan base hyped up.
Yeah, and it comes with a fast start. I think that we talked about the need for that, of course, in Miami, going down to South Florida, historically a very difficult place for the Patriots franchise to earn wins. They did just that last week, but they've got to get off to that hot start once again this weekend here at home in Foxborough. We will talk about some of the things that we are watching for in this game against the Steelers as we continue here. Plus, we keep mentioning Hall of Famer and Aaron Rodgers. Well, how about the Patriots Hall of Fame? Because there's a couple guys who are going to be donning some red jackets this weekend. We'll get into that as well as we continue right here on Foxborough Rush.
The big hitters were getting the ball out, staying inside out and pass pro. The guys did a good job of that. Establishing the run, had in the run game. Thought we did a good job of that, and just positive plays. Kind of being short distances. I think we got to do a better job there, and kind of lay back on the penalties. And I think those guys that play a role in that, and so just from there, just kind of some of the main things I think we're trying to establish is we accomplish.
What impresses you about the Steelers defense and the idea of going against Jabrill Peppers as a possibility also?
Yeah. First off, their down guys are good players, real good players. Their linebacker, their front seven's real good. They got veterans guys in the back end that have been great players in this league, and I think the Steelers, they're going to play hard. They're coached well, and I think for us, we just gotta, like I said, stay ahead of the chains. I think you mentioned Pep. Yeah, if he's out there, shoot, he's going to compete. We know what he's like, so he's going to bring it. So.
Yeah, they know what he's like. It wasn't that long ago that he had a Patriots uniform on, talking about Jabrill Peppers, of course. And we heard it earlier in the show here, talking with Brian Batko, who covers the Steelers. He's got a little something extra, to go up against his former team. And he anticipates that he'll be out there this week on some of the defensive snaps. So the Patriots know what they're up against, in going up against a Jabrill Peppers, should he be out there in some of those packages. Look, as we hone in on what we're watching for in this game, maybe we'll go top three things here. But for me, I mean, I would kick this off with New England's run game. I really think that it helped establish the early going down there in Miami last week. We all know the game that Ramondre Stevenson had for the Patriots, not just on the ground, but being able to catch some and, get some yards after the catch as well. I think he, had almost 150 yards combined on the day. So it was a huge day for him against the Dolphins. But I do think establishing that run game, particularly against a Pittsburgh defense that has really struggled in their first two games this season, obviously given up over 30 points in both of those games. And I think for New England, establishing that early, it'll open up a lot of other things for them, both in their passing game and their play action game. So to me, that's one of the things that I'm really focusing on watching.
Yeah, and I'll build off of that. Someone specific that I'm watching is TreVeyon Henderson. You really didn't see him too much in Miami, and it was actually Ramondre who ran the 50-yard pass play that TreVeyon ran in practice. So I'm like, okay, maybe TreVeyon, you want to do that this week? Would love to see that. I think we could get super excited about that. But he's a guy who we were talking about all preseason. You saw what he did during training camp. You saw what he did in the first preseason game with that kickoff return. And so I'm excited to see him. Like you said, the Steelers are really struggling against the run. The Jets and the Seahawks laid out a great blueprint for the Patriots to look at and figure out, hey, this is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to run the ball. We're going to use play action, and we're going to use our running backs in the passing game as well. So I'll build off of what you're saying with the running game, but specifically TreVeyon Henderson, I think he's due for a game.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we all know the speed that he has, right? And we really haven't seen let me put it this way. We know that Josh McDaniels is excited about the speed of his rookie in TreVeyon Henderson. And we haven't really seen it in game yet during the regular season. So I would totally agree with you. I think this is one that he could have a breakout game here. And I think he's going to continue to be a building block and a bigger component of this game as he continues to learn, right? I mean, that's part of this too. And he's done it with such humility and really such grace, since arriving here in New England, that I think everybody is rooting for that as well, AB, right? For him to go out there and have a significant role in one of these games as we continue to move forward throughout the course of the season. What's the second component of this game that you're watching for?
Yeah, I have Patriots special teams, and that's in two ways. I would say the first is you saw the Steelers have that major miss that we talked about with Brian off the kickoff, and the Seahawks were able to capitalize and get a touchdown on that. So I'm like, all right, can we capitalize on any Steelers mishaps on special teams, head on a swivel, see what you can get out of there, and maybe have our own kickoff return again as well. But maybe even more importantly, can we just make those extra points? We drafted Andy Borregales for a reason. I know he's a rookie, and Vrabel, clearly believes in him, gave him the game ball, you're pumping him up, but they brought him here for a reason. And so those are some non-negotiable kicks. And it's not just on him. It's the snap, it's the hold, it's the kick, right? But I think a big focus for me is going to be on the Patriots special teams and really Andy Borregales.
Yeah, I think everybody's got to be watching that one. I mean, it's a gotta have it, right? I mean, you have guys who all of a sudden are creating talk around the league as to if there needs to be rule changes because of the distance from which they're making field goals. I mean, it's become a gimme at this point in time. And you go back, I mean, I remember sitting there on the edge of my seat, not all that many years ago, when it was this is, 45, is he going to make this? And we are in an entirely different place when it comes to field goals now. So the extra point, we saw the league change that because it had become too much of a gimme, which is why there are now these conversations about could there be another change at some point down the road here? But you've got to make those extra points when we're seeing field goals from the distance that we're seeing them win games this season. So yeah, kicking game certainly has to be something that's watched. I'm also curious to see what Pittsburgh does in terms of establishing a run game, which they simply haven't done the first 2 weeks. I mean, their run game has just been flat out anemic. And so will they be able to establish a run game against the Patriots front? It may be that like Brian alluded to, maybe they just go, well, like this is kind of how we're built right now with Aaron Rodgers. And we've seen people put up points, and this takes me right into my third, what I'm watching here is, how is Aaron Rodgers going to fare against this New England pass defense that has really struggled, over the past couple weeks? I mean, giving up, over 300 yards per game. They shut down Miami when they needed to last week. And so, look, maybe that's the way you get it done. But the reality is you're not going to be able to do that week in and week out. At some point, you're going to have to make those tackles. You can't have guys who are missing more tackles than are making tackles. And that's not a statistic I think that any team wants to be associated with. So I fully expect them to shore that one up this week. But it's definitely something that I'm watching.
Yeah, the Patriots D-line feels blood in the water. They can sense it, right? Like they are ready to go with the home crowd, with that energy and get a sack on Aaron Rodgers. But I would say the third thing that I'm watching is Aaron Rodgers, but against Drake Maye, right? Like I know they're not going across the line of scrimmage from each other, but Sam Darnold was the better quarterback in last week's game against the Seahawks and the Steelers. Like Drake Maye, we're all kind of laughing and think it's cute that Drake Maye, studied the grip of Aaron Rodgers and oh my gosh, he looked up to him, but they're competing. These two teams are going up against each other, and based off of what happened last week and how well Drake Maye is now being protected and the lack of protection really that Aaron Rodgers has at home, I think Drake Maye has the opportunity here to put up a good fight and maybe be the better quarterback in this game.
It's going to be an interesting one to watch, and I do think that part of that is just that notion of these two quarterbacks who are on opposite ends of their career, right? And, I remember a number of years ago, going there and watching Brady and Mahomes, on a Sunday night game. And, Mahomes was still younger in the league, and Brady, one of his last year. It's like you just sit there and you're like, wow, you are watching sort of the crisscross of generations in football on the field at the same time. And that's pretty cool.
No, it definitely is. And you that's why you live for those moments after the game when the players talk and you're wondering what's going on. And sometimes they do the little, hide the mouth. I'm not going to let you hear what I'm saying kind of thing. But no, it's super cool. And so that's why I'm watching it. This is the first real time that you're going to get to see Drake Maye lead this Vrabel team against an Aaron Rodgers team.
Yeah. I think we would all like to know what they say to each other after it's all said and done. Maybe that is dictated a little bit by the way the actual game plays out. But yeah, put me like a fly in the air right there for that post-game interaction between Drake Maye and Aaron Rodgers. One of those moments, post-game moments, was caught on camera not too many years ago. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the other side as we get set for some red jackets, as I mentioned. That's coming up next right here on Foxborough Rush. Welcome back into Foxborough Rush. As we've been talking about, there's a red jacket ceremony to get set for, of course, and that comes your way tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern, in the Patriot Place Plaza. Both Bill Parcells and Julian Edelman will be elected into the Patriots Hall of Fame. You can get all the information on how to attend, how to watch, how to go out and cheer, for a couple of greats in this game. Look, I mean, this is this is a special time for both Bill Parcells and Julian Edelman. You got a favorite moment for watching either of those guys coach and play in this great game, AB?
Jade, I have an incredible moment, and it wasn't during a game, but for one of the Patriots parades, I was on someone's shoulders, and Julian Edelman himself threw me a t-shirt, and I caught it. So I can say that I caught a pass from Julian Edelman, and I wore that shirt all day. I got pulled out of school to go to this parade. Like, I was jacked up, walked back into class with the shirt on. I think the shirt said BLA on it, okay? It was amazing. Definitely a highlight of my life. For sure. I actually forgot about that moment until you just, I think I actually forgot about that moment. So now I'm like, wait, I'm so much cooler than I thought I was. So thanks, Jade. I needed that today on this Friday.
I mean, just a little Friday boost for you. Mike Vrabel talked a little bit about Julian Edelman today. Just talked about what a pure competitor he always was. A warrior was a word that he used to describe him. I remember actually spending a couple days with Julian Edelman's family out, in the Northern California area where he grew up to do a feature for Sunday Countdown for ESPN, and then going and talking to Julian, and just his dad always telling me he was this little kid who was like, when am I going to grow? And would cry and was sad about it. But, he walked on. He was a quarterback, of course, in college at Kent State. And his coach there looked at me and was like, he walked up to our starting quarterback his first day on campus, and the guy was heads above him. And he just looked at him and went, dude, I'm going to take your job. And then he did, right? I mean, that's what he did. But that's how he always was as a player. And I think that's why, Vrabel classified him as such a warrior, because he had that competitive spirit all the time, right? I mean, Julian said the same thing to me when I talked to him about, Belichick calling him on draft night, just being like, I don't know what we're going to do with you, but I know you can ball. So we'll figure out a place for you. And they sure did, and look at him now, right? They have found a place for him in the Patriots Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. Who maybe is a player that is in that, Patriot list of lore, if you will, who you think also deserves to get a red jacket at some point in time?
Yeah, well, we talked earlier just about the importance of those field goals and those extra points and how rules might need to be changed because they're being executed so well or not, right? And how it can really change a game. And so I got to go, no doubt, Adam Vinatieri. I mean, this guy kicked off the golden era for the Patriots. You don't have Super Bowls without him. You have game-winning kicks, NFL's all-time leading scorer. There's a million reasons why he should be in the Patriots Hall of Fame. And I read something funny from Tom Brady that he said, when you look up the word clutch in the dictionary, there should be a photo of Adam Vinatieri in that. And I'm like, you know what? There should be a photo, and it should be the whole page of Adam Vinatieri. So I got to go. It's a no-brainer for me with this one. I'm confused why he's not already in the Patriots Hall of Fame. When I saw his name on a list of guys who weren't in, I'm like, what? Adam Vinatieri? He should be in this weekend. He should be going in on Saturday. So definitely rooting for him at some point here.
Yeah, I think I'd go with a guy who isn't yet eligible, and I'm sure we'll get in, staying on the special teams trend, of course, and that would be Matthew Slater. Everything that he did for this team. I mean, you look at the numbers, obviously spent his whole career here in New England, 13-time captain, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 10-time Pro Bowler. And I talked a little bit about, those moments, right? When we were talking about what that moment is going to be like between Drake and Aaron Rodgers. When Slater and Aaron Rodgers met on the field, at the end basically of Slater's career, and Rodgers kind of was like, hey man, and he was like, yeah, this is it for me. And Aaron Rodgers literally was like, you're Hall of Fame, man. And he is, right? I mean, he has a case to have a gold jacket, not just a red jacket, made for him, as the best special teams player of all time, as Bill Belichick once said, AB.
13-time captain, like, we can just leave it at that. That is absolutely incredible, and a special teams player too. And I think the even more significant part of Matthew Slater's impact is that I think if you ask literally anyone who has ever played with him, that he is one of the best people that they know. Right? Like the impact that he had on the locker room culture needs to be facilitated constantly. It's not something that you have one year when you win the championship and then it just like carries over. Like it has to be worked on and people have to care about it. And when you have a leader in the locker room like Matthew Slater, like that is a huge testament to the success that the New England Patriots had.
Yeah, and a huge part of why they had the success that they had. I mean, he just, consistency day in and day out, and it's so fun, to talk with Matthew about that team and the way he would lead and how it evolved over the years. I think we've both been fortunate to have some of those conversations with him, and it truly is a gift. He is one of the best humans that you will ever meet, hands down. And happy birthday to him, because his birthday was earlier this month. So, congrats to Julian Edelman and Bill Parcells, who we all know his accomplishments in this league as they get their red jackets tomorrow. Matthew Slater, we're sure yours is coming. And Vinatieri, I mean, let's see it, right? Let's see it. That is it for us. We're about done. AB, give me your quick prediction for Sunday. Who do you like?
You know what? I know Brian was going more on the Steelers. I'm going to go more on what the Seahawks did to the Steelers. I'm going to go Patriots. I'm going to go close game, 27-24. Patriots pull out a win at home at Gillette.
I like it. We'll talk about it on Monday. I'll take the Patriots in this one as well. That is it for Foxborough Rush. Enjoy the football.